Have you ever wondered, how do I talk to God? It's not an uncommon question on the spiritual path. Even in the quietest moments, you may have felt a deep desire in your heart to be connected to the source of all things. In the flow of mystical teachings, Mahavatar Babaji, the revered immortal teacher in the Kriya Yoga tradition, revealed the methods and philosophies by which each of us can open the spiritual door, enter into a state of communion with the Almighty. Babaji is not just a legend. He is the symbol of the highest awakening, who lights the way for millions of people. His story is a testament to the immortality of the soul and the transcendent power that we all possess. So, how do we really talk to God? Silence, God's language. Mahavatar Babaji once said, "God does not speak in the language of men, he speaks through silence." This quote opens up a whole new perspective on connecting with God. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is a divine state where the mind is calm and the soul becomes clear. When you return to the source of the mind and become a witness to all the movements of the mind, you begin to become one with God, hearing the call from within, what Babaji calls the voice of the soul. A story from believers recounts that Babaji guided them in meditation in the Himalayas. During long days of silent meditation, they felt no direct words from God, but a deep understanding seemed to arise from within. That's how Babaji emphasizes that God is always present in you, waiting for real listening. Babaji encourages his followers to practice meditation in complete silence. He taught that when you let go of the need to think, the need to speak, and simply exist, you will begin to hear wonderful sounds from the universe. These may refer to whispers of the heart, a sense of peace, as if the universe is embracing you. The sound of breath, a natural rhythm, like a symphony of life. Presence of light, not physical light, but spiritual light that illuminates within you. Babaji says that one of the easiest ways to approach silence is to focus on the breath. Every time you inhale, imagine the light flooding into your body. Each time you exhale, let the darkness and fear away. Over time, silence will become your teacher. Unconditional love, a bridge to God. Love is the most powerful energy that connects the soul to the source of the universe, the fastest way to connect with God. He advised his disciples, "Love all as yourself, for every soul is a part of God." One of Babaji's most important teachings is, love is the universal language of the universe. He emphasized that, if you want to talk to God, first learn to love yourself and everything around you. Love becomes a powerful bridge to God when it is unconditionalized. This is pure love, which does not come from the ego, does not require a response, but is simply an overflow of creative energy from the source itself. A story about Babaji says that he saved a stranger from drowning in an icy river, even though he had harmed him. When asked why he did it, Babaji just laughed and said, "How can I hate a part of myself?" During one of the lectures, Babaji asked his disciples, "When you talk to a friend, do you need a reason? So why do we need a reason to talk to God?" Babaji explains that every time you love someone, help someone else, or simply look at the beauty of nature with gratitude, love a flower, or love your whole life, you are talking to God, you are fully integrated with God, you seem to be out of space and your sense of time disappears. The taste of unity with God is felt only by you. Love turns the most simple things into the sacred. Love, it is the invisible power that connects all life, the energy that transcends all boundaries of time, space, and ego. When we love without wishing, when our hearts open to embrace all, we touch our divine nature. Ask yourself, when you fall in love, do you feel a sense of harmony with the whole? In every moment of love, do you realize that God is smiling through your own presence? Faith, the golden thread that leads to God. Babaji once said, "Walk in faith as if God were leading you, and you will never get lost. You must have absolute faith." Mahavatar Babaji often said that faith is not just a blind belief in a supernatural force. Faith is the state of mind in which we completely let go of doubt and fear, trusting that God is always present within and around us. This is a deep belief that every experience in life has meaning and is part of the divine plan. Once, a disciple asked Babaji, "How do you know God is really listening to you?" Babaji replied, "Listen to your heart. If it's peaceful, that's your answer." Babaji teaches that faith is the key to connecting with God. When you put your trust in His guidance, you begin to live in peace and freedom because you understand that you are never alone. You not only connect with God, but also become a bridge to bring His light to the world. Faith, however, is not something that can be forced or achieved through reason. It is nurtured through personal experience, through listening to one's heart and observing the little miracles of daily life. Babaji encourages us to practice meditation, contemplation, and living in presence so that faith becomes a natural part of who we are. Ask yourself, when you face adversity, do you see it as an opportunity to strengthen your faith? Can you let go of all your worries and trust that God is working through you? Kriya Yoga, the door to God. An important part of Babaji's teachings is the practice of Kriya Yoga, an ancient meditation system designed to help the mind and body reach a state of harmony. Babaji believes that, through breathing, we can unlock the divine energy within ourselves. When you practice Kriya Yoga, you not only purify your physical body, but you also deeply connect with your soul. His Holiness often emphasized, "The breath is the bridge that connects you to God." One believer once shared that, as he practiced Kriya Yoga daily, his worries and fears gradually disappeared. Instead, he felt God's powerful presence, not through words, but through absolute peace of mind. Humility, the key to communication. Babaji teaches that, in order to talk to God, you have to let go of the ego. He once told a story about a student who came to him and said, "Teacher, I have read a lot of scriptures and understand how to talk to God." Babaji smiled and replied, "If you already know how, why haven't you talked yet?" This teaching carries a profound lesson. Humility is the foundation for connecting with God. When you let go of control and allow yourself to be fully immersed in the flow of the universe, that's when you begin to hear His voice. Babaji encourages us to make communication with God a part of our daily lives. There is no need to wait for sacred moments. Instead, see God in every little action, in every breath, every smile, and every moment you give love. Let go of all prejudices. Mahavatar Babaji once said, "The Lord is neither on high nor far off. He is the light in your heart, waiting for you to open the door." In every human being, the heart is the dwelling place of the soul, the door to the boundless universe. But how to open this door? Babaji explains that the first step is to let go of all prejudices. We often picture God as a concrete image, a powerful being, a God with a transcendent form. But Babaji emphasizes that God has no form. He is pure energy, infinite light, that exists in all living things. Babaji told the story of a young disciple who came to him who spent his life seeking God through complex rituals and harsh asceticism. Babaji just smiled and said, "Sit down, put your hands on your heart, and simply say, 'I'm listening.'" The disciple complied, and after many hours of meditation, he began to feel a warm glow from his heart. It was not an outward miracle, but the presence of God within him. Accept the door to peace. One of the most important lessons that Babaji shared was, Acceptance is not surrender, but the understanding that everything is perfect as it is. He explained that when we refuse to accept what is happening, we separate ourselves from God. God not only exists in moments of happiness, but is also present in difficulties, losses, and suffering. Babaji said that once he met a woman who was suffering from the loss of a loved one. She asked Babaji how to overcome this pain. His Holiness said softly, "Look at your pain as a lesson. God is speaking to you through pain, teaching you to love and let go." The woman began to practice accepting pain, and over time, she found peace in her heart. Babaji concluded, "Acceptance doesn't change your circumstances, but it changes the way you look at things. That's how you open the door to God. Letting go of fear, accepting God in freedom." One of the biggest barriers that prevents us from talking to God is fear. Babaji teaches that fear does not come from God, but is the product of the mind. In order to communicate with God, we must free our minds from these chains. His Holiness once said, "The Lord does not judge, you are the one who judges yourself. Let go of fear, and you will hear His voice." Babaji told a parable about a small bird that was locked in a cage. The bird is afraid of the outside world day and night, even though the cage door is always open. One day, the bird decides to step outside and realizes that the world is not as scary as it thinks. Babaji concluded, "The door to God is always open, but you have to be brave enough to walk through." He advises us to practice meditation and ask ourselves, "What am I afraid of? Does that really exist, or is it just an illusion?" Each time you let go of a fear, you draw closer to God. Question: Spiritual Enlightenment Tool. Babaji is not just a teacher who gives answers, he is also a master at asking questions that provoke profound wisdom. One of the methods he used to help his disciples connect with God was to ask the right questions. He once asked, "Who is the one who is speaking? Who is listening? Who are you without your thoughts?" These questions are not meant to seek instant answers. They are the tools to bring you into a state of deep contemplation where the mind is no longer in control and the soul begins to speak. Babaji teaches that when you ask a sincere question, the universe will answer. Sometimes the answer doesn't come right away, but it will come at the right time, be it through a dream, a sign in nature, or a feeling of surprise in your heart. Serving: how to talk to God through others. Babaji teaches that one of the most direct ways to communicate with God is to serve. His Holiness said, "When you help others, you are helping God Himself in them." Service is not just a material act, such as giving away wealth or helping with work. It is an act of love and respect for the soul in each person. Babaji often advises his disciples to practice seva, unconditional service, as a way to achieve communion with God. A story tells of a disciple of Babaji who sought God through complex rituals. One day, Babaji asked him to bring water to a visitor to the ashram. At first, the disciple felt that this was too trivial, but when he finished the work with respect and focus, he realized that the smile of the guest was a reflection of God. Babaji concluded, "Service is the most vivid prayer. Through service, you do not need to seek the Lord, He will find you." Connecting with nature, the voice of the Creator. Babaji always emphasizes the connection between humans and nature. He said that every tree, every stream, every wind is the word of God. He told a story about a young disciple who always felt disconnected from the universe. Babaji instructs him for a walk in the forest and listens to the sounds of nature. When he stopped under an ancient tree and placed his hand on the trunk, he felt a gentle vibration as if the tree was talking to him. Babaji explains, nature is not just a part of the universe, it is the universe in its simplest form. Listen, and you will find God. Babaji encourages his followers to take time each day to connect with nature. Take a walk in the sun, listen to the birds sing, or simply sit still under the starry sky. These moments will help you feel God's presence in all things. Presence, God in the present moment. One of the most profound lessons that Babaji shared was about the power of the present moment. His Holiness said, God is not in the past or the future, He is only here and now. He often asked his disciples to observe their surroundings deeply, without judgment or inference. This includes: feel, recognize the light breeze, the rustling of leaves, or the sunlight on your skin. Focus, be fully present in every action, whether it's just a sip of water or a step. Let go. Stop obsessing about what has passed or worrying about what is coming. Babaji said that a disciple asked him how to overcome his worries about the future. Babaji just smiled and said, live as if this is the only moment you have. Because actually, that's what it is. The disciple practiced this teaching, and after a while, he found peace in the smallest things, a feeling he had never known before. Experience the light inside. Babaji once said that every human being has a sacred torch inside. However, this torch is often clouded by negative emotions, fear, and ignorance. He pointed out that when you light this torch, the darkness will disappear without effort. Babaji encourages his followers to practice Tritaka, a technique that focuses on a candle or a bright spot. Staring at the candle flame for a few minutes without blinking. Close your eyes and imagine the fire inside your mind. Let this light spread throughout your body, feeling the warmth and peace. He explained that this light is a manifestation of God in you. When you recognize the light within you, you will feel a deep connection to the entire universe. Metaphysical dialogue is recounted. One peaceful morning in the Himalayas, Babaji was meditating under a large tree. The surrounding space was filled with silence, only the sound of birds singing and the wind blowing through the foliage. A young disciple, full of confusion and thirst for knowledge, approached him. He bowed his head respectfully and then asked, "Teacher, how can you calm your mind when it's always bothered by thoughts?" Babaji laughed loudly and said, "Babaji, I think the mind is my enemy. But it's just a tool. Learn to use it instead of letting it control you." He sat down by the stream and began to instruct. "Babaji, sit still and close your eyes. Focus on your child's breathing. When a thought arises, don't try to drive it away. Just look at it as if you were watching a cloud drift through the sky. Don't judge, don't cling. Just let it come and go naturally." Students follow. At first, he found it difficult when his mind was full of thoughts. But gradually, the thoughts began to dissipate, leaving a peaceful void. After a few minutes, Babaji asked, "Babaji, how do you feel now?" "Student, I feel more peaceful. But there are still small thoughts that come up." "Babaji, that's okay. Don't fight them. Just keep observing. Over time, your mind will become as calm as the water of this stream. And then, you will hear the Lord." After the practice, students felt a small but important change in their minds. He no longer felt as confused as before. He bowed to Babaji, grateful for the simple but wise instructions. Student, teacher, I understand. Talking to God is not waiting for Him to answer verbally, but to feel His presence in silence and peace. Babaji smiled, his eyes full of love. That's right, baby. God is not far away. You are always in my heart. As long as you are quiet, you will recognize Him. The way to the source, a state of unity with God. When we think about talking to God, the mind often visualizes an external entity, separate from ourselves. But according to the teachings of Mahavatar Babaji, the true path to connecting with God is not to seek outwardly, but to journey back to our inner roots. In deep silence and stillness, Babaji asserts that we are not only conversing with God, but also becoming one with Him. This is not an experience to be described in words, but a state of direct awareness, a perception that transcends the mind, emotions, and body. The secret lies in the silence. In absolute stillness, where all thoughts and desires are let go, a new reality begins to emerge. Babaji calls it a state of fusion, where the individual self ceases to exist, and all becomes one with the infinite energy of the universe. Stillness is not meaningless emptiness, it is the all-encompassing source of life. When we enter stillness, the walls of separation created by the mind begin to crumble. The distinction between me and God melts away, leaving a single feeling, I am God, and God is me. Babaji emphasizes that stillness is the only gateway to this state of fusion. But in order to achieve stillness, we have to face and overcome our own layers of delusions, false beliefs, fears, and clinging to the ego. Searching within yourself, the secret of the inner path. Babaji teaches that the journey to God does not lie in going far, but in going deep. He used to say, don't look for God outside. He is not in temples, churches, or synagogues. He is in you. Many of Babaji's followers begin their spiritual journey with the idea that they must attain some supernatural state or seek God in a sacred place. But Babaji shattered this belief with a simple lesson: go back to yourself. He instructed his disciples, meditate on your own mind, ask the question, who's thinking? Who is feeling? Query the root of your ego and get a deeper sense of who you really are. Non-judgmental observation: when you observe your mind without attachment, you will begin to realize that thoughts are just passing clouds, not your nature. Touch your roots, find peace and stillness, where there are no questions or answers, there is only pure existence. Babaji often uses an easy-to-understand example. Imagine you're looking for the sun in a cloudy sky. Clouds may obscure the light, but the sun is always there. So is your mind. God is always present, as long as you dispel the clouds of ignorance. Conclusion: the road without distances. The path of talking to God that Mahavatar Babaji taught is not based on any complex ritual or system. It is the simplest, but also the deepest path, the path back to oneself. In silence, stillness, and humility, we will realize that God has never left. We don't need to shout or beg, just open your heart, and He will answer, not with words, but with peace that fills the heart. Babaji has always emphasized that there is no distance between man and God. Distance is just an illusion created by the mind. When we let go of these illusions, God's presence becomes an integral part of our lives. Sit down, listen to your heart, and you'll realize that God has always been there, just waiting for you to realize.